You guys, today we're going to be talking about a really powerful, powerful topic that is so important for every single one of you guys. And it is all about burnout. We're going to be talking about self care and the superpower that you need to prevent burnout. And today I have with me Dr. Tamara Beckford, and she's an emergency medicine physician, international speaker, and the CEO of You Are Caring Docs, where she helps companies reduce employee burnout through self-care workshops. She hosts the Dr. Tamara Beckford Show, where she interviews physicians about self-care, wellness, and their activities inside and outside clinical medicine. And to date, you guys, she has interviewed 175 physicians across the world. And globally, the podcast named after the show ranks in the top 5% of podcasts. Oh my gosh. Dr. Beckford's expertise in self-care has led her to being featured on over 65 podcasts, presenting on the importance of wellness on various platforms, including Power to Fly, Centerpoint Energy, Rolling Out, Scale Your Business Summit, the Grants Professionals Association, Physician Coach Support, the 40 Acre Conference, and the Blaze Virtual Summit. She is a success mentor at EntreMD Business School, mentoring nearly 60 plus physicians weekly and helping them build profitable 6- and 7-figure businesses. And get this, you guys, her content has been viewed over 1 million times on social media, and she has co-authored 2 best-selling books, Made for More and Thriving After Burnout. And she was recently mentioned as from the New Jersey Academy of Sciences as a COVID-19 hero because of the work that she did during the pandemic. So help me, you guys, welcome Dr. Tamara Beckford.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh my goodness. I'm like, I need to meet that person.
We don't realize that all the things that we do accomplish
Dude,
inside of our life and how amazing they
absolutely.
are.
Until you hear it, right?
I know. And you've done so many amazing things. And I was reading your chapter in your Thriving After
After burnout.
Burnout.
hmm
And so I'm curious,
hmm
as an emergency medicine physician and an expert in self-care, how did you realize the importance of self-care in preventing burnout?
Oh, yeah. It was one of those things that I would say I would say on one hand, you felt like you stumbled upon it, but on the other hand, it was the alignment of everything that was going on environmentally at that time. Prior to the pandemic, I was living a life, ER doc. There was a little bit of a void that was there in my life. And I was just trying to figure out, okay, well, maybe after I do this, then I won't feel that void, right? So I thought, well, maybe it's because I want to start a family and it's not happening. Then was able to start that family and there was still that void. And this is nothing towards those of us who are parents. I mean, I love my kids, but there's so much more to us than some of these titles that we have. So
Yeah.
still working as an ER doc, has the family, and then wanted to do more. So then I said, okay, let me venture into entrepreneurship because I felt like I had more to give. Of course, that's the same time that the pandemic struck. So the
Okay.
pandemic is there. And as an ER doc, hello, it's like that's where you have to be on the front line. That's just you. The unfortunate thing about one of the many unfortunate things about the pandemic is as an ER professional, there isn't any guidelines for pandemics because the pandemic that the last one that we had was over 100 years ago. Emergency medicine wasn't a specialty then. Everybody that
Yeah.
was in that pandemic has died. So no one left the blueprint to say this is how you handle a pandemic, especially as ER doc. So what was going on around me is that I started to notice that a lot of my colleagues, they started to really do poorly. And, which is understandable.
Yeah.
Anxiety, depression, just ranked high, burnouts. And, we started to just see that, like you started to have a lot of fear, not just for your patients, but you have a fear for yourself. I mean, we're
Yeah.
humans, you know what I mean? It's just like
Yeah.
we talk about even some of your audience can relate to this. Your teachers, before you started to do, online, you had to be there with the kids. You're like, well, I love the kids, but I'm also a human and I have my own family. So the fear
Right.
started to go up and a lot of people started burning out. During that time, I started going inward and started to decide, okay, well, what is it that I can control? And I didn't realize I was doing that at the time. And so I started to really delve into a great morning routine. I started to delve into really investing into a lot of personal development. I started to invest in being around like-minded people, and I thrived during that time.
Mm.
It was the opposite of everything that was going on around me. And so when I looked at all of this, and if we even think about the word self-care, a lot of people automatically said, well, you weren't able to get your nails done. You weren't able to go to the spa. We were on lockdown. Like, how is this self-care? And it's like, because self-care does not mean that you need spa retreats or nails or hair appointments, right? Self-care is
Right.
what brings you to the essence of you. So those
Mm.
things brought me back to the essence. So this Tamara that I knew as a kid, like, she had been buried for so long because of everything I was trying to attain in life. And then she just sprung right back out during the most challenging time of everyone else's. And I thrived. And that's when I said, you know what? Boom, this is self-care. And that's how
Ah,
I got to the essence of it. And that's why I define self-care as what brings you to the essence of who you are, right? So if you
yeah.
can bring yourself back to the time when you were probably the happiest, carefree, time in your life, carefree in not that you are making bad decisions, but carefree in that life's responsibilities on you weren't that much. And a lot of times, especially when
Right.
you're around 7 or so years old, right? You're no longer a toddler. You've moved on to the different phases. You're not teenage and having to deal with the tweens and all this stuff. So there are just some little things that you just love to do. And you just did it and you were just happy. So that's my definition of self-care.
Oh, I love it. Oh, yes. And I would say I was really at a peak of burnout during the pandemic because I
Mm-hmm.
did have so many people reaching out to me for the online tutoring. And there was that guilt factor of if I can help them, I should help them. Why wouldn't I
Mm-hmm.
help them? And the other factor of you can't go anywhere. So you might as well be making
Well,
money, right?
yes.
And use the opportunity to get ahead in life and whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
it was for me starting to lead to burnout because I hadn't put
Absolutely.
some healthy boundaries in place. But as soon as you
Mm-hmm.
started saying like when was that time, I kept saying to myself, it's right now. It's right now. Like I'm in that complete space of
Mm-hmm.
just pure bliss and happiness every single day that I wake up, and
Mm-hmm.
little things don't bug me. Like we just had like a major plumbing issue happen yesterday, but it wasn't something that like it didn't
It
like
didn't
rock my
derail you,
boat.
right?
It didn't derail me. It's like, look, it's all
Right.
going to get taken care of. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
have people in the world that can take care of that, and it's going to be great. And
That's
so,
fantastic.
you know, I mean, just think about how people would have dealt with things like this like 100 years ago, right? It doesn't have to be
Yes.
that thing that takes me out. It's like, no,
Mm-hmm.
this is normal stuff that happens to people and it's okay. We're going to walk through it and everything's going
Absolutely.
to be fantastic.
But
What are some
like
of the
you even
yeah,
say, I was gonna say, like, even not even 100 years ago, think about like the who you were, like even 5 years ago, that probably would have derailed a lot of us. So once you get to
yeah,
that point, right, that you can now just say, okay, well, yeah, there's an issue, but it's not going to derail the rest of my day. It's not going to derail the rest of how I feel about, this particular topic, or, it's such a level of peace.
it is.
It
It
is.
is. And it's a beautiful place that we want you guys to get to. That's why we're
Yes.
having this episode today. So, what are some of those common signs and symptoms? Because you talk about in your book that, it's kind of like the tiger that sneaks up on you and you don't
Absolutely.
even know that it's coming. So, what are some of the common signs and symptoms of burnout that people should be aware of?
Oh, absolutely. So there are three D's. This is the three D's. And I love it. I'm talking to the teachers. So this works. It's the three D's for burnout, right? So one is depletion. So you start to depletion of your emotional exhaustion. You're just like emotionally exhausted. So you're just depleted. And then the second D is detachment. So you start to become apathetic to the situations. And we do have to remember that a lot of time burnouts, we use the word burnout very loosely, but in its
Mhm.
traditional sense, burnout is really a sensation and the feelings and everything that we're talking about towards work, right? So
Mhm.
this is towards work. So one, you're starting to feel depleted, then you become detached, and then you have a lot of you feel a decreased sense of accomplishments in what you're doing. So now if we think about our goals in life, a lot of us, we might say we don't have any goals. I'm not really goal. I just want to do what I'm doing. But no, we each have goals. Every single day, we have a small goal to accomplish something. So when you're doing work, like even like as like teachers whom I love because I won't be where I am if I didn't have great teachers, right? When you see that spark that occurs in that child's eye or whomever it is that you are imparting information, and especially if it was a challenging information, and then you see that spark, and then you see it's like, oh, that gives you this sense of accomplishment, right? So
Yes,
that's what
yes.
happens. So when you start to just dissociate and you just, it is what it is. That's when you start to lose any sense of like whatever I'm doing is great. um you know yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's not having any huge effect on anyone anyway. That's when you know you're in the levels of burnout, right? So you're depleted emotionally, you're just emotionally exhausted, you're detached, and then you have a decreased sensation or a decreased association with any accomplishment that's happening. So you don't even feel like what I do matters.
Mm,
So that's when you
yeah.
know that you're in burnout. And there are a couple phases and the reason why it's so important to discuss this is because burnout within itself, you have the milder phase of it. When it gets very, very severe, it leads to mental health issues.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that's why.
Yeah.
So when you think about depression, suicidal ideation, or those are the different depths that can occur, with burnout. That's why it's so important for us to discuss it.
Exactly, because we care about every single one of you guys, and that's why this is so important. And a lot of times, we're spending a lot of time with ourselves in our homes doing this online tutoring, right? So we're not really
Mhm.
talking to a lot of people about this kind of stuff. So that's why it's so important to be talking about it. Once they
Absolutely.
realize that they might be in this burnout stage, what are some effective self-care strategies for preventing burnout, or how can people incorporate them into their daily routines?
Ah, wonderful question. Wonderful question. So first is a sense of awareness, right? Okay, I'm starting to notice these things. I'm starting to notice that I don't even feel like jumping online. Each time I get an alert that I have a new student or I looked at my calendar, I'm starting to just, okay, whoa, this wasn't me. I was really eager and excited initially. So now I have to go into a lot of self-awareness, as you mentioned, right? So with that, then you need to start looking, what are some of the things that made me excited in the first place? And then you also look at what are some of the things that I love to do that I have stopped doing because I told myself I no longer have time to do, right?
Mhm.
That's what really brings us into a lot of this is the busy. I'm busy, I'm overbooked, I'm over this. But a lot of times, if we look within our calendars, we can pull out 15 minutes. And that sometimes is all it takes per day in order to break some of these cycle that we're heading into, right? Because when you feel you're continuously given, then you start to lose this
Mhm.
life that you have, your anime. It starts to just wear out. But once you start to
Yeah.
pour into yourself, then you start to feel a lot better. So, what are some small things that you can do? If you are not doing this already, this is a great way to start. And this is actually one of the things that I did that helped me during the pandemic, is that I started to have a morning routine. And my morning routine incorporate, and it's not big. It's not an hour and a half. I don't have an hour and a half. It was really like 20 minutes before everyone says,
Yes.
"Oh Lord." So it really was like 20 minutes. So what are some of the things that I did? As soon as I got up, number one actually started the night before. It started with this device, and it's the phone. I put the phone across the room for me, right?
Hmm.
So when my alarm goes on in the morning or whatever time it is, I'm a night worker, so it's in the afternoon, then I get up, walk across the room, turn it off, and get my day going.
Hmm.
So I no longer snooze. That was challenging to do because I was like very much a snooze queen, but just the act of working on that small step did wonders for me, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
now I have my body up. The second thing I did is that I invested in myself mentally before I let the world enter into my day. So it was for me, I'm a spiritual person. So I read like, a Bible verse. If you're not a spiritual person and you want to read something, you might want to read affirmations. You
Hmm.
want to read things that just really builds you up for the day, right? I
Hmm.
would listen to like maybe a 15-minute podcast on something that just like had me enriched. That time was a lot of podcasts on not just entrepreneurship, but personal development. Zig Ziglar.
Hmm.
Oh, and if
Yeah,
you
yeah.
remember Zig
Oh, yes.
Ziglar. Yes. So I mean, after you listen to those, even if it's a 10, 15 minutes, you can't help but feel empowered, right? So now once I did all of that in a little movement, once I did that, when I read the email that would have destabilized me prior mentally, it doesn't, because I now enter into my day versus having my day enter into me. If as soon as I wake up, I look and I read the email, and that's the first thing that I'm getting is a negative input, then now you are starting so far behind and you have to put so much energy to turn your day into a positive day. Once you start on that positive input, it's hard to derail you into a negative, right? Because you're on a
Mm-hmm.
positive and you are entering into your day and you're not having your day enter into you.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
another thing is, so those are just simple starters. So gratitude practice. It's
Mm.
very simple, but very powerful. Because if we think about our day, the first thing we think is, oh my gosh, I haven't even see, those are some of the automatic words that comes into it. I still need to, oh my gosh, I forgot to, oh, I'm such an idiot. I didn't. Like, think of all the negative words that we use on a consistent basis. Now, when you start your day and you said, oh, I am grateful for, total difference, right?
It is. It is.
It is
It
like,
really is. It really is. I mean, I woke up this morning and, I've
mm-hmm,
got this plumbing issue in my house, which it was pretty major yesterday. We heard this like sound that wouldn't stop. It was like this loudest sound I've ever heard just coming out of my house.
mm-hmm,
And I had to like turn the water off and everything. But today I woke up and I was like, I am so grateful that
yes,
all of the spirits up there are already doing all of their magic. Thank you so much for doing all of your magic to make all of this
mm-hmm,
fixed. And I
yes,
appreciate you so much for fixing
yes,
this for me and
yes.
having all those people in place. And it's so fun too to kind of go down the gratitude list
List,
of that thing, right? Like I'm so grateful for the person who's going to come to the house, who's going to
yes,
be able to know if is this problem or this problem. I'm so grateful for the people that have created the tools that he's
tools.
going to need in order to be able to do the fixing. I'm so grateful for the people who have even like dug up the metals so that those tools could be formed and made. I'm so grateful for the people that have gone to schooling for so many years, and they have created devices inside of our homes that easily make water such a
Hmm.
a non-thinkable essential that we just have at our fingertips. Like, just
Yes.
go down the I like just to take something that could be like even a problem that you might even think about worrying about, and go down that gratitude list and go down the chain, break it down, and oh my gosh, you just feel joy and happiness for everything that you're
Yes.
surrounded versus, oh my gosh, I have this big problem that's affected me. It's going to affect me for the whole day. It's going to,
It's gonna ruin my schedule.
I
It's
know,
that's gonna
right?
do.
And
It's
I
so
just,
powerful.
oh, it's so
So as you're
powerful.
even going through this, and I'm feeling like the chills from the power of it, I say like once you get down that path of gratitude, your perceived problem starts to look so minuscule if you think
Yeah,
about it, right?
yeah,
Because you're like, there's so many things in place to fix this. I don't even have to think about
right,
water, as
right.
opposed to there's so many people who have to figure out how are they going to get clean water. I don't even have to think about it. This is
Right.
something that is it, yeah, it's a minor inconvenience, but it's fixable. There are people out there
Yeah.
who know how to fix this. It's not something I have to live with for the rest of my life. And it just really puts everything into perspective. And I know those
Yes.
who are listening, you're like, well, what does that have to do with self-care? Think about your mind. Your mind is
Yes.
the biggest tool that you have.
Right.
Once you have invested in it, that's self-care. Your stress level
Yes.
goes down. We can talk about the from the scientific point of view. Yes, I can give you all the info about how stress can lead to heart disease and heart attack, but if you even invest in these small but powerful tools, you are on the way to preventing all of that.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you guys. And I have a real story about the power of
Mhm,
the mind, you guys. I had two friends of mine were
mhm,
both diagnosed with cancer
mhm,
the same exact time. One person, the world was over. It was done for. This is the most terrible thing that could ever happen to them. And they
mm,
explained all of their medical woes and all of their medical problems. My other friend decided to thank God for all of the opportunities he's had and to trust him in whatever path this has taken him, and to trust whatever it is that he's going to keep fighting no matter what. And
mhm,
he would be like, when he was going under, different surgeries, he would be thanking, the doctors for all of the work that they're
mhm.
doing and be grateful for them. And every time, like you asked him how he's doing, he's like, I just got another day. Like he would be so excited. I
Yes.
just got another day. And the other person was in a complete grumbling state. And this is like the worst, like when we think about sometimes like the worst thing
Mhm,
we could possibly go through, right?
mhm.
One person died, one
One
person
person
lived.
survived. Yeah, absolutely.
And I bet you know who it is. I mean, it's
Mhm,
that. So for me, that was like the biggest visual I had. And this was back in like 2010 when I was just starting my business on
mhm.
the
The
mind and
power.
the words that we use for
Yes.
ourselves
Yes.
drive everything.
Yes.
They really do. And
Absolutely.
that state of gratitude is just the opening of the door, right? And it's
Mhm,
so, so pivotal. Now, on your podcast,
mhm,
the Dr. Tamara Beckford Show,
mhm.
you have featured interviews with physicians from around the world discussing self-care and wellness. Are there
Yes.
any key insights or common themes that have kind of emerged from these conversations that could be applied to online tutors?
Actually, the same power as you're telling your story, I have an interview with one of my colleagues, physician, Dr. Isabella Meek. Same story. She was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and the same power of the words. She said that, she used all of this experience, and she said it was so powerful. For those who you want to go, you can go and listen to just the power of words in helping, in addition to everything else, in healing. She's a rheumatologist, she is cancer free from stage 4 to cancer free, but just the power of words and using it to help to heal your body. She said she was so in tune with her body at one point that she just said to the cancer cells. And I know some people think like, oh, this is woo-woo. She is like she's from France. She studied at the top research institutes in France, and she came here and did additional studies in the United States. So she basically did med school twice. And she's, working in she's a rheumatologist in, I think she's in the Midwest, and like top researcher, and uses the Western and the Eastern medicine. And when she really dug deep, when she got the diagnosis and she was in the deep portions of healing, she said she told the cancer cells, listen, I know you are here and I understand that you're in me, but I still have so much more to do. She's like, at this point, I'm just going to need you to leave. It was just such a powerful part of the interview. I've never had someone really dug it deep within themselves. And she said at that portion, the healing, she became cancer free. So I'm saying all this to really reiterate from additional stories of the power of words, even with deep terminal illnesses, right? So to answer the other portion of your question about what are some of the common themes that I've had with those who have interviews. So right now, at this particular recording, I'm up to 185 interviews of doctors.
Wow.
And one of the most powerful things that they do that has helped those who have recovering from burnout, one is boundaries. Two
Mm-hmm.
is the power of slowing down when you
Mm.
need to,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
Our lives are on a constant, we feel as if we have to constantly move. And
Mm-hmm.
there are times when you have periods of rest, and rest is not completely inertia. Rest is just really just slowing down in order to build back up and to be able to move along. The other thing too that we talk about, which is a very important portion of self-care, people hear you say, put the oxygen on yourself first in order to take care of others. Another way that, one of my physician put it, and I love the way, and this is Dr. Tawana Gilliard, she said, I pour from the saucer ministry. And I said, okay. And I started to think about it. So for those who it hasn't visualized in your mind immediately, I'll give you the visualization. Think about when you're going to a tea party, right? You have your cup of tea and you also have the saucer. So your teacup is in the saucer. Whatever has spilled from the teacup into the saucer, that's what you have to give to others. So you're not given from the cup itself. Your cup will stay full. That's
Mm.
self-care, right? The saucer is what you
Yes.
have to give to others. So that's another powerful lesson for those who have gotten to burnout and have tried to prevent it again. That's the lesson that they've learned. I have to give from what I have left over, especially when you have these additional titles. Your mom, your daughter, if you're in the sandwich generation, you're taking care of your older parents, you're taking care of your kids, and you just feel like you're being tugged in every different direction. You have to provide some time for yourself and give from the saucer. You know,
Mm.
don't give from the cup.
Oh my
Those are
gosh, that
some
is
powerful.
so beautiful. That is powerful.
Mm-hmm,
Oh, wow. And I just thought of like a phrase from the Bible that says, and my cup overfilleth. My
mm-hmm,
cup be overfilleth. And we're talking about there, then like it's from that overfilleth. And a lot of times a lot of times we feel like we're giving out of, expectations of others. We're doing all
mm-hmm,
that. You talked about boundaries, and
mm-hmm.
I actually have boundaries on those things that deplete me. And I've found out
Yes.
that the things that deplete me are my email inbox and Messenger. Anybody else?
You know. Okay, anyone
Yeah.
else? How many windows do you have open on your phone? Okay, we're not going to talk about it.
Yeah, so I actually have set boundaries to that. I actually set times in
Yes,
my day, and it's not the first part of my day either. So when we talk about creating a
absolutely.
routine,
Mhm,
I come up with a time and I put it on my schedule. I could say, okay, today at 4 o'clock or today at 11
mhm,
o'clock, that's where I'm going
Mm,
to check my email, or
yes.
that's where I'm going to go into my Facebook Messenger. So
Yes.
I know that some people get annoyed with me because, it might say that I'm on Facebook and I'm not, just because the window is open on my computer, right? And I
Yes.
don't get back to them, but it's because it I have to
It's
like
for
set
your
those
boundaries.
boundaries. Yeah, it
Absolutely.
absolutely is, because otherwise I could have people just like messaging me. They grow. You ever notice that? Like,
Mm-hmm.
your email inbox, the more that you respond, grows and grows and grows. It doesn't ever get
Yes,
smaller. So if I
absolutely.
respond to people immediately, then we're going to have problems. Now, the only people that I do respond to immediately are usually my clients and my students, and they come through my phone, through my text. So they actually they're the only people that are allowed to text me.
Right.
And the big reason for that is because I need to know if they're not able to make it to a session, or I need to be able to communicate with them if they can't make it, if I can't make it to a session, or whatever is happening, I can easily quickly get in touch with
But even
them.
think about the power of what you're saying too, right? If we think
Yeah.
about our lives from the perspective of we're trying to be task oriented, how long it takes, I actually don't have the direct data, but it takes a good 10 or so, or even more minutes to bring yourself back on task once you
Yes.
broke that level of concentration. Right?
Yes.
So that's the power of what you're doing. So, okay, now this is dedicated to me doing this particular task. I'm in that zone. I do the same thing. I try not to bring home my charts with me. So for those who are listening, like, yes, I'm an emergency medicine physician and I still work full time and I work in nights. So I'm a night doctor. And before I leave to come home, I complete my charts. Now, interestingly, at the beginning of the pandemic, during the time before I became a little bit more organized and into this personal development, I used to bring my charts home. I actually have on YouTube a schedule, and I showed it to a colleague yesterday, where I was finishing my charts at home. 3 hours and 44 minutes is how long it took me to do the charts.
Wow.
Look at how much time that got wasted.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you finish it, when I'm at work, I'm already in medical mode.
Right. Right. It's just a completely different experience. And yeah, I even have like spots inside of my house that are like, this is dedicated for my workspace. And I try not to
Yes,
work in other places in my house to kind of, again,
abs
set those boundaries. And
boundaries.
I've even set time boundaries now as well, so that I have
Powerful
that
too.
ability to slow down. So like today's like a half day, and then um tomorrow and Sunday I have nothing scheduled. So if I want to work on some other things, sometimes I do work on it just because that's the nature
Mhm.
of my business, but it's only things that I feel like working on. It is
Those are
never something that I feel like, it's never like,
a
oh, I have to
task.
do this, and there's stress and there's all that. Like, if I don't have excitement around doing it, it's not going to get done during my weekend time. If I'm excited to do it during the weekend, go for it. Like, there's nothing stopping you. But if all of a sudden I start
Absolutely.
to feel that, oh, I still have to do that, it's not going
Hmm.
to get done. I have to figure out a way to get it done during my work time, during my work hours. So I think that can really
So
be
I
be
want to
helpful.
highlight something too to your audience, if just in case they didn't catch it, which is so powerful what you said. You said that I have scheduled these times and I have dedicated space in my house where you haven't blurred the lines between work and relaxation to the point that it doesn't even appear to happen.
Yeah.
Because when you do that, then there's no demarcation for your mind to know I'm in relaxation mode, right?
Right.
So
Right.
how do you replenish? How do you replenish yourself if your mind is consistently thinking that it's work mode? So
Right.
that's the power of when you schedule yourself. So that's something that I do to, like, on Friday nights and on Saturday nights, I by around 9 p.m., like, I'm done. I'm
Hmm.
listening to something that stimulates me and gets me really happy. And that's like I listen to music for me, and it's usually the same songs. It's Bruno Mars. And I'm like, this is But I do that and it just automatically, the stress goes down. I'm listening, I'm
Mm.
singing, and like, I do not have a good singing voice. But it's just relaxing. And so
Yeah.
my mind knows that once I put on Bruno Mars and I start singing his songs in my horrible voice, it's like, oh, there she goes. She's in relaxation mode.
Yep.
Everything melts away. So it's so important. And this isn't something that you have to do for hours. 15 minutes. If you're a person who loves to read and all you've been reading are books that are pertaining to your career, but when you were younger, you used to love reading little romance novels, pull out a romance novel. 15 minutes of
Mm.
reading that, it does wonders for yourself.
Yeah.
Those are self-care techniques. Those are the small, powerful things. You don't have to schedule the appointment. You don't have to schedule the fancy vacation 3 months away from now. You can do it right now in your house. Just pull out something that you've always loved to do. If you love to sketch, get a book and just start to sketch. 15 minutes. That's your self-care.
For me, it's crocheting.
There we
I
go.
love crocheting. It's so calming and relaxing to me to like do the same stitch over and over and over again, or to learn a new stitch gets exciting
Mhm.
and then do that over and over again. And
Yes,
yeah, there's just some like repetition there with that. It just like
absolutely.
just makes me feel happy as I'm doing
Hmm.
it. I
Hmm.
absolutely love it. In
Absolutely.
your
There we go.
experience, what are
Hmm.
some of the biggest obstacles that people face when it comes to implementing self-care practices, and how can they overcome them?
Absolutely. So the biggest obstacle is something that we actually talked about. The mind saying that I do not have time.
Hmm.
That's one big obstacle. And as we just mentioned, the way to overcome that is to really sit and you can even do a day that you do an audit of your day and say, what am I doing during this time and where is my time going? Because we might say,
Mm.
I do not have time. I am just so busy. And then you've been scrolling on social media for 45 minutes
Right.
because the way those 45 minutes, you thought you were only there for 5 minutes, right? So take a time audit, see where it is, and then add things in that makes you feel great. Because you probably say, okay, well, I love scrolling on social media. Yeah, but once you come off, if you're feeling bad about yourself because it looks like all your friends are on fancy vacations, but you're here working, was that a positive thing? You know what I mean?
Right.
How about you just really do something that makes you automatically, you know that you will always feel great about it, just like how you said you feel about crocheting. So if you took and you scheduled the 15 minutes and I'm going to do these really nice stitches, I just learned how to make my pineapple. I love crocheting too. So you know how to make my little pineapple, and then I'm going to make lots of little pineapples, then you feel great, like, oh, okay, wow, that was relaxing, as opposed to getting off and feeling, depleted. Another thing, so time is one thing. The other thing that people always forget, and this is easy for me to say, sometimes it's challenging to do, but it's something that is utmost important, is delegating. You cannot
Yes.
do it all.
Yes.
No matter
Yes.
how powerful and strong and mighty you are. If
Yes.
you even think about it, even like everyone who is doing anything of greatness has a team, has help.
Hmm.
So your help, you don't need to hire, so maybe you can just say, is it someone whom you trust? Is it someone that can or you can hire it out? Is this something that you like to do? What about some of your
Yeah.
chores? If you
Yeah.
hate folding clothes, that's just not where you want to spend your time.
Right. Right. Yeah, I hate cleaning my house, so I have somebody come on in and clean my house each week, and
Ditto.
it's the best money I spend all week. Like, I'm excited to spend that money because I'm just like, see, it makes my house look great. Like, people
Right.
can now come over my house at any point in time, and my house is at least it doesn't look like a disaster area, right? It's good enough
Absolutely.
for people to come on in, and
Yes.
it makes me feel happy when I see all the little things that she does to like make it even more special.
Yes.
Um, she just does little things like she like folds the toilet paper in a little triangle, and she like
Oh. Like
she
gives you
like
like the hotel feel.
It does. And then like she like makes my bed like with perfect corners and like it's like little things like that that I don't take
Mm-hmm.
time to do that I really appreciate when she does, and it just makes me happy. Like I'm happy to delegate it. I'm happy to pay her, and I'm happy to take that off of my plate, and it doesn't feel like I'm not providing for my family.
Absolutely. And how long does it take her to do it versus you to do it?
I think on her own, it depends on if she comes in with somebody else or not, but it takes her 3 hours.
So that's 3 hours. Now you doing the entire house.
Right.
It's not 3 hours.
Oh my God, no. It would be
Exactly.
like forever. It would take me way
Exactly.
longer because I don't have a system in
Absolutely.
place like she does, right?
Thank you. And then we also have to recognize where other people's zone of genius is and where your zone of genius. So where would you rather spend your time?
Exactly.
What is making you happy? Right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
I really
So
missed that during the pandemic because we couldn't find somebody who would come into the house, and
yeah,
it was like
me too.
all on us and the family. And I
Yes,
had an
I see
extra
the stress
kid.
in the hands and the forehead. You're like, I
Oh,
just
yeah, it's
remember
there.
I had the same thing. I had during the pandemic, my youngest was a year and a half. My oldest was 3.5 years old. And that's all I could say about the house.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
No matter what you
Yes.
did.
Yeah.
So, but those are things that we have to just be able to delegate. And that's a part of your self-care. Now, I know people are like, well, how is that self-care? If you think about it, if you have someone who can do something for you for 3 hours versus you consistently having it stressed oh, I started, but I didn't get to finish. Oh, this part doesn't look the way I need to. That's stress.
Yeah.
It's not self-care.
Right. That's not how you want to spend your free time either. Like
No.
even doing those things. Like I would actually feel myself just be like, I would feel angry, and like I would try to throw on some like happy, like meditative music or listen to a podcast or something while I like clean the house. And I'm just like, I would be angry the entire time. I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? This is just not
Thank you.
worth it. And then
Thank you.
I would get even more angry if somebody then either
Moved
started redoing something I already did,
Oh, yes.
or they gave me feedback on how I didn't do it well enough. That would just take me to a whole nother level.
So, for your audience, it is okay to delegate. It is okay to get some of these things off your plate because it will definitely help you to reduce your stress and to keep you sane. And that's all important part of reducing burnout. You're already doing so much.
Yes. Yeah. As a COVID-19 hero recognized by the New Jersey Academy of Sciences, what are some additional resources or support systems that people can turn to for help in preventing burnout and maintaining their overall well-being?
Okay, so some of the ways that you can prevent burnout. Now, there are online resources that are, one, of course, recognizing what is burnout. And, we've talked about the 3 Ds of it. Then you can also use online resources there's some from the educational resources. I actually did not write down from this particular academy, but I think it was the University of Western Virginia. They have a great thing online about burnout. I have a book, of course, about thriving after burnout. So if you want to read the stories of some of our physicians who have gone through some of the most horrific portions of life, then that's definitely something that you can do. Now, if you do and an organization to try to help to prevent burnout, that's actually what I do. I do that through self-care workshops. So I speak on it and I talk about ways in order to reduce stress. And I do day workshops and I do like a continuous workshops for 6 to 8 sessions. And you could do that like once a month on ways to reduce burnout within the employees so that we can keep productivity high and then keep the employees from high turnover rates. So that's something that I do as a part of your Caring Docs.
I love that. So those tutors that you've got a team of tutors underneath you,
Hmm.
and you want to make sure that you're helping with their self-care. That could be definitely a fantastic resource for you to provide for your people. And
Absolutely.
we do have to care about when we start working with others and having others underneath us. We do have to
Hmm.
care about their self-care as well. Right. It's not
Absolutely.
about what you can do for me, but I want people to think about when you start employing others, I want you to think about them as your boss in a way, and what can you do for them? What can you do
Absolutely.
for them to make their jobs easier? Not take things off their plate, like necessarily, unless
But to
that
provide them
has
with
to
the
happen.
tools. Yeah,
Yeah, provide them with tools that are going to take them to the next level in their
absolutely.
business, and give them that peace and that harmony that they were seeking when they decided they wanted to work for you. I
Absolutely.
love it. Thank you so
Absolutely.
much for this candid discussion today about burnout and, what it looks like, how we can identify it, some things
Hmm.
that we can do to prevent it, and how we can really get our sanity back and um, give ourselves the gift of self-care.
Oh,
And
yes.
it may include for you part of your self-care may be getting, your nails done or getting your hair done. We have to think about too the spiritual self-care that we need to give ourselves, and the connection with other people that we have to give ourselves to, because that's going to help fill voids that we're experiencing. It's not just about making money, you guys, right? Our life is more than that. So thank you so
Hmm.
much for joining us today, and I can't wait to share this with my crew.
Thank you so much for having me.